This lesson is Chapter 11, Lesson 2, on median and mode. You're going to need to have your textbook out and open to pages 817 through 820. You need to be active in your learning while watching this lesson and listening to it. You guys, it's really important that you pay attention, and when you get to the parts where you need to work out the examples, it's important that you work them out on your own first before checking your work. So, to get started, the two main things that we're going to be talking about in this lesson is how to find the median of a set of numbers and how to find the mode of a set of numbers. So looking at the vocabulary startup in the center of your page, we have three words that we're going to go ahead and define. They are mean, median, and mode. Now our first lesson from Chapter 11, Lesson 1, happened to be about mean. So what mean is the number or the sum of numbers in a data set divided by the total numbers in the set. So if you remember, we did this in our previous lesson where we added up all the numbers that we were given in a data set. Remember, a data set is just a group of numbers. And then once we added them all together, we divided by however many numbers were in that data set. So our first new word for today is the word median. Now, when I think of the word median, I think about the median that's in the center of the road, of the street, and that median is sometimes like a raised sidewalk or that grassy area that divides the two different directions of traffic, and that's always found in the middle of the road. Well, a median for a set of numbers is similar. It's the value in the center of a data set in order, or it could be the mean of two center values. So let me explain this a little bit further. So the median is when you have your data set, all your numbers, what you need to do is you have to put them in order from least to greatest. Once you've put them in order from least to greatest, you find the number that's smack dab in the middle, right in the middle. That is your median number. Now, sometimes you're going to notice that there's two numbers that are in the middle. So if you get two numbers that are in the middle, you have to find the mean or the average of those two numbers, which means you add them up and divide by 2. And our last one is mode. Mode is the value that shows up the most often in a data set. So for example, if you have a set of numbers and all the numbers show up just one time, but one number, let's say the number 7 shows up twice, then the mode would be 7 because that number showed up more than any of the other numbers at the same time. Now, of course, we are going to go through all these examples as we go through this lesson. Let's go ahead and look at the real world link. The table shows the number of Atlantic hurricanes in different years. So you'll notice that in our table here, so we're looking at this area right here, it gives us the numbers 5, 15, 9, 7, 4, 9, and 8. So what I want you to do for number 1, I want you to put the numbers in order from least to greatest. Then you're going to circle the number that's in the middle of your list. So go ahead and take a minute to put the numbers that are in that table on number 1 in order from least to greatest. So from least to greatest, they are 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 9, and 15. Now 9 shows up twice, so I write it down twice. So now I wanted us to circle the numbers in the middle of your list. So if we're going to look at this, and you can do this a couple of different ways, I'm going to show you one way in the next example of kind of doing like a rainbow, and this is sort of what I do. So I'm going to do kind of an upside down rainbow since I don't have room on the top, but I would just pair up my first number with my last number, and then the next number with the next to last number, and then after that, and then you notice that 8 cannot pair up with anybody because he's all alone. He's smack dab in the middle. So therefore 8 is our middle number, which is the same thing as the median. Now, for number 2, it's asking us to find the mean. Now remember, in order to find the mean, you have to add up all these numbers, and then it's going to ask us to, add up all the numbers and then divide by however many numbers that there are. There happen to be 7 of them. So go ahead and pause the video right now and find the mean of this data set. So you're going to notice here on the left side in gray writing, I went ahead and added up my 7 numbers, and I got a total of 57. Over to the right of the screen in that bright pink color, I went ahead and took my 57 and divided it by 7. Now you'll notice that 7 does not go into 57 evenly, so I did add a decimal and 2 zeros. Now if you look here, I did not finish my division problem, but I didn't need to go any further because it's asking me to round this to the nearest hundredth if necessary, so I just stopped at this part right here because I didn't have to go any further. So I found that the mean for this problem was 8.14. And yes, sometimes and many times actually, your mean will happen to be a decimal. So the second part of number 2 asked you to compare the middle number, which is what we got for question number 1 right over here, to the mean of the data. Okay, so when you're comparing them, you're going to do just that, compare them. Tell me which one's bigger or which one's smaller. So you would basically on this one tell me that 8, so that was what our middle number was, 8 is less than the mean. And when you're comparing these, those are some of the things you want to think about. You're comparing two things together, and because we're dealing with numbers, the only way, one main way to compare them is by telling me which one is greater than or which one's less than and so forth. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the next page. So here it defines median and mode again. The median is a list of values that it's the middle value once you put them in order from least to greatest. Now the mode is the number that shows up the most often. So in order to find the median, we're going to go ahead and write this note over here in the work zone of your area. You're going to put the numbers in order, and then you're going to find the center number. Now remember, I already mentioned if you happen to have two numbers that are in the middle, in the center, once you put them in order, you have to find their mean, which means you have to add up those two numbers and then divide by 2. To find the mode is the number that shows up the most often. And that one's pretty easy because once you have your numbers put in order, you can tell which numbers show up more than once. So let's go ahead and look at example number 1. Example 1, the table shows the number of monkeys at 11 different zoos. Find the median and the mode of the data. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to put the numbers in order from least to greatest. Go ahead and write step 1 like I did and draw an arrow to the part that says order the data from least to greatest. Now they did this for us already under the median part. So that's done. You don't have to do this for you. Or you don't have to do this on your own, I should say. Well, step 2 then is to, and I'm going to show you like what I call the rainbow method. You don't have to do it this way. I know some of you have different methods that you can use. Either one works or any method you use works. Just make sure you're choosing the middle number. But sometimes it's easy just to go ahead and put the first two numbers together, meaning the first number and the last number, and then the next set, and then you're going to keep going until you end up with just your middle number that has nothing to attach to it. So therefore, 28 happens to be my median. The mode is the number that shows up the most often. So if you already have your numbers put in order, you'll notice that 18 shows up twice and all the other numbers only show up one time. So therefore, your mode is 18. So in this example, it means 18 monkeys. All right, so now this one we're going to go ahead and do together, but you are going to pause the video in a second. So what I want you to do is go ahead and use the test scores here. It says Dina recorded her scores on 7 tests in the table. Find the median and the mode of the data. So go ahead and pause your video right now and put your numbers in order from least to greatest. Now, it's helpful when you do this to cross them out so you know that you've used all the numbers once. So you'll notice here, I went ahead and as I wrote my numbers in order from least to greatest, I went ahead and crossed them out as I used them. Now the second part tells you to circle the number that's smack dab in the center, and that tells you that this is the median. Now I showed you on the previous example like how you could do the rainbow. Another thing that I've used is I sometimes like to knock out my numbers. So what I do is I knock out the first and the last. By knocking out, I mean I just cross them out like this. And I'm doing this with a very light green. So then I'm going to knock out the next ones. And then the next ones. until I end up with only one number. So you'll notice that right here, what I'm circling is the number 93. This is my center number, so that is my median. So down below where it says the median is a score of, we're going to go ahead and write 93 in that first box. And then the last thing you need to do, it says to circle the most frequently occurring numbers. This value is your mode. Well, the numbers that show up more than once happen to be 93. So I'm going to go ahead and put a circle around those two numbers. And over on the bottom where I'm going to write what the mode is, I'm going to also write the number 93. So I want you to notice here that sometimes you can have the same number be the median and the mode. And you know what? Sometimes it could also be the mean as well. So don't let that confuse you if you happen to get the same number each time or even different numbers each time, because it's all random and it's possible. Okay, so now on this guy right here, what you're going to do is I want you to go ahead and try this one on your own just like we did before. So you're going to go ahead and pause your video, and then you're going to check your work using the information that I've given you. All right, go ahead and do that now, and then push play when you're ready to check your work. Okay, so here you can see I went ahead and put my numbers in order. As I'm putting them in order, I am crossing them out to make sure that I've used up all my numbers. So now you can go ahead and use whatever method you want to use. I'm going to go ahead and just cross them out, like my first and last, then the next set, and then the next set. And I find that my median, which is my number in the middle, happens to be 30. Now I'm going to look for my mode. The mode, remember, is the number that shows up the most often. The only number that shows up more than once happens to be the number 40, so therefore my mode is 40. So you can see on this example that you have two different numbers. One is 30, one is 40, and that's okay. Just like in the previous example, you notice that the problems showed up, or the same number showed up for both median and mode. All right, let's go ahead and look at example 3 on page 819. So on this one here, you're going to find the median and the mode of the temperatures displayed in the graph. Now, over here in your graph, you can see where they gave you the numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and circle them for you. So you've got the number 64.4, 71.2, 55.5, and 58.2. So in order to find the median, you're going to put those numbers in order. And they did this for you right over here. Now, in this example, you're going to notice, okay? So if I were to do, let's say, the rainbow on this one. So I'm going to match up the first number with the last number. And then look what you get here right in the middle. You get these two numbers that I'm circling right here. You get 58.2 and 64.4. Well, you end up getting two middle numbers on this one. Well, when that happens, what you have to do is you have to add your numbers together and then divide by 2, because you need to find the average or the mean of the two numbers. And by doing this, you're basically finding the number that comes right in the middle between those two numbers. So go ahead and take a moment to write that note that I wrote down here to the left in pink. When two values are in the center, find their mean. And you can see that the book did this for you. Now, when you're looking for the mode for this set of numbers, you're going to notice that all the numbers show up only one time. So basically, what happens is if all the numbers show up the same number of times, so in this example, they all show up just once, then there is no mode. And you would simply write that. You would write no mode. Don't write the number 0. I know people in the past have tried to write the number 0 saying, oh, there's no mode, so it's 0. Well, remember, 0 is a number. It doesn't really do much to a set of numbers when you're adding or subtracting by it, but it is a number. So if there's truly no mode, you have to write no mode. All right, so go ahead and look at example 4. Miguel researched the average precipitation in several states. It says to find and compare the median and mode of the average precipitation. Okay, so here you have 8 different states that they listed from Alabama all the way to Missouri. And you can see their precipitation, which happens to be like water, okay? And so, or rainfall, I should say. So on this one here, for example, you'll notice in Florida, the precipitation in inches happened to be 54.5 inches. So what they did first is they took all those numbers and they put them in order from least to greatest. And they did this over in this area right here. Now, once they found the median, so by finding the median, maybe they did the rainbow or maybe they started crossing the numbers out. So if they did the rainbow, like here's what they're doing. You'll notice that they ended up having 2 numbers in the center. Those 2 numbers happen to be 48.9 and 50.7. So what they did is they found the mean of the 2 middle numbers. And they did that work for you right over here. So they added them up and divided by 2, and so they found that the median of that set of numbers was 49.8. So this is your median number right here. So we're going to go ahead and write the word median right next to it. So now we're going to find the mode. So if you look at your set of numbers, the only numbers that show up more than one time happen to be the numbers 42.2. So right here, what I circled happens to be your mode. All right, so now on this one here, it asks you to find and compare. When you are comparing, you guys, you have to give me all the information on these problems. So in order to compare, so go ahead and over in the work zone, I want you to write what I'm putting out here first. To compare, number 1, you have to tell me what the median is. Number 2, you have to tell me what the mode is. Now, we just found the median, 49.8, and we found the mode, which is 42.2. Now, once you tell me what the median and the mode is, now do that actual specific comparing. When you're comparing numbers like I mentioned earlier, you're going to tell me which number is greater than or which number is less than the other. So you'll notice here in your description or your comparison sentence here, it says the median is 49.8 inches and the mode is 42.2 inches. That first sentence is parts 1 and 2 that I highlighted for you here and here. Then it says the median is 7.6 inches greater than the mode. So if you wanted to tell me the mode number first, then you would tell me that the mode is so much, smaller. So in order to find the difference here, they actually subtracted to find these numbers. Okay, so go ahead and put that note in here that what they did is they subtracted to find how much bigger the median was than the mode. So when you're comparing these, you have to tell me how much greater than or less than it is. And when you're doing this, you guys, you must write in complete sentences. All right, so now it's your turn to go ahead and try these on your own. So once again, go ahead and pause your video. I want you to try these on your own, and then when you come back, I want you to correct your work or your sentences if it's because it's asking you to compare for letter C. So on letter C, you must write a sentence. And then check your work and fix it if you need to. So go ahead and pause it this time. Okay, so for example B, I went ahead and put my numbers in order from least to greatest. And then I went ahead and on this one and did my rainbow, and I found my center numbers. Now I found that 26.79 and 58.54 were my 2 center numbers, so I added them together, and then I divided by 2. Now, I want you to pay attention to what I got here, though. So now, because we're dealing with money, and we know we're dealing with money because, look over here, that table tells us about the cost of backpacks, and it gives you a dollar sign. Money is written with only 2 decimal spots. So that means on this problem, when my division problem did not end after that second number, the second decimal spot, I added an extra 0. And I ended up getting a 5 in that 1,000 spot right there. But because money has to end, this is where I have to round it to basically the nearest penny. So on this example here, my median ends up being $27.67 because I rounded the 66 cents up to 67 cents on this one. The mode, since no number shows up more than once, I would write no mode or simply none. Remember, you cannot write the number 0 on this one. All right, so for example C, I went ahead and put my numbers in order so you can see that I did this, and then I went ahead and started crossing my numbers out to figure out which one was in the center. I found that once again I had 2 center numbers, so I added them together and divided by 2. So I found that my median ends up being $2.47. So then what I did was I found my mode, which happened to be $2.87. But then I remembered, wait a minute, it told me to compare, which means I have to write a complete sentence. Okay, so here's my sentence. The median is $2.47 and the mode is $2.87. So you'll notice here that I basically just had them listed before, but it was very easy to put this in sentence format. But now you have to do the comparing part. You have to tell me how much bigger one number is over the other. Since median is my first one, I'm going to go ahead and say that the median is, and then I'm going to talk about it that way. So the median is 40 cents less than the mode. And I got that from doing $2.87 minus $2.47, which gave me 40 cents. And I got those two numbers from this spot right over here. Okay, and that's where I got those two numbers. I subtracted them to find that my median was 40 cents less than my mode. Okay, now look at example 5. Now this one is a similar question to our previous one, except now we're also going to be talking about mean as well. It's asking you to describe the daily high temperatures using measures of center. Okay, so measures of center. In the past, you may hear me say measures of central tendency. When it's talking about measures of center, we're talking about mean, and then you're comparing the median and the mode to all that part. So you're doing all three, mean, median, and mode. So to find the mean, you'll notice here that they went ahead and they put the numbers, or they added up all the numbers, and they divided by 7 because we had 7 numbers in our data set. So they end up getting 69 degrees. Because we're talking about temperature, they use that little O or that little 0 to represent the word degrees. Then they went ahead for median, and they put the numbers in order from least to greatest, and they found that the median was 71. That's your middle number. And then they found that the mode happened to also be 71 because that's the temperature that shows up more often than any of the other temperatures. So you can see here when it tells you to describe using measures of center, you have to find all three, median or mean, median, and mode. So the thing that's going to take you the longest to do is the mean. After that, mode and median, just put the numbers in order and you kind of got it pretty quick. All right, so now this is the describing part. So when you're describing, you still have to tell me what you get. All right, so if you look at the sentence that they described here, it started by telling you that the median and the mode both equal 71 degrees. So they automatically talk to you about the median and the mode. It then said that they are both 2 degrees greater than the mean. All right, remember we said that the mean was 69 degrees. So what they did is they took the median, or the mode, since it's both 71, they subtracted 69 from it, and they found that the difference was 2 degrees. And that's how they got that second sentence, that they are both 2 degrees greater than the mean. Now, this final sentence says, the data follows the measures of center in that the temperatures are close to the measures of center. Now, you have to go back to our previous lesson on mean. When we talked about mean, we talked about how the mean number, which is your average, tends to be the number that's sort of in the middle of all your numbers. It's the average. It's kind of like what the middle part is. And that's what that last sentence is talking to you about on that one. We are going to be doing a lot more practice in class with coming up with this describing part, because it really is important that you get this part and are also doing it correctly. So to describe, for number 1, I want you to go ahead and write this in the work zone. I want you to make sure that you're finding all measures for mean, median, and mode, just like they did here. And number 2, you're going to compare them to each other. So you're going to tell me which numbers were greater than or which numbers were less than the other one. So in this example, median and mode were greater than the mean by 2 degrees. So you're going to have to do some subtracting on that. And then part 3, you're going to tell if the data was close to the center. Remember, the center is your mean. So look at your median and mode and tell me if they're close to that mean number. Basically, if they're close to the center of data, then all 3 numbers are really close together. So look at this example. You had a 69, a 71, and a 71. They are all pretty close together to each other. An example of when they wouldn't be close together is if you found one number that was a 3 and then the rest of the numbers were like 19 because they're too far apart. So you would say then that the data is not close together to the center. All right, so now this is your turn. So you're going to go ahead and pause your video, and you're going to describe the cost of CDs using the measures of center. Okay, so on this one, you're going to find the mean, median, mode, and then use that information to write your sentence. Okay. So if you look here, I went ahead and I didn't show all the work, but I found that the mean for this set of numbers was $15.98. I found that the median is $15.69, and I found the mode to be $19.99. If you did not get those 3 numbers for each of those, then you need to go back and recheck your work and find where your error was. Now, the way that you're going to describe this one's a little bit different because our numbers are different than they were in the previous example. So I started by talking about the mean and the median since those were the first 2 numbers. I said that the mean and the median are close together because if you think about it, they really are. They're only off by less than 20 cents each, okay, about 19 cents apart from each other. And but then if you're comparing them to the mode, they are close to $4 less than the mode. So I talked about how the mean and the median were close together, their prices were close, but the mode was almost $4 more than the mean and the median. So then if I sat there and thought about where my numbers were, like when I put them in order from least to greatest, I found that my mean and my median number were closer to most of the numbers, and what wasn't close to most of the numbers, which was not the center, would be my mode. So I put that the mean and the median are closer to the center, so because I'm looking for my measures that are closer to where most of the numbers are on that one. Okay, as we go through some future lessons on mean, median, and mode, especially in our next lesson, the part that we just did right now where we described it will make much more sense as we get a little further in our thing. All right. So here what you have is your guided practice. I would like for you guys to go ahead and complete questions 1 and 2. Make sure that you show me all your work. I think you have enough room on this paper to do your work off on the side, but once again, if you don't, you can go ahead and do it on a separate sheet of notebook paper. Please remember on question number 2, it does tell you to describe, so I will be looking for a sentence for question number 2. So if you give me just a list of numbers, you're going to lose points because that's not what it is that you need to be doing for question number 2. All right, you guys, we will see you back in class, and have a good evening.